guy from New York. It's the show that's buying tickets for basketball season already.
Yeah, I'm gonna get
around
some
the
people
corner.
Knicks Lakers tickets. Yeah. Wilds offered it, then shockingly.
I didn't offer it.
Knicks
We had a
Lakers
conversation about
was expensive, and he just sorry, buddy. I thought they were gonna be on
more
the
expensive
discount.
than I thought. I thought it was gonna be
Knicks
here and it's there.
Lakers
You're like,
on
whoa.
the most hyped Knicks year, and maybe LeBron's last game ever in the Garden would be cheap. That's what you thought.
Yeah, but if the beer, I expect the beer to cost $12. But if it costs $74,
Well,
I'm allowed to be like, wow, that's even more expensive than I thought. We're starting with last night's game and Tua. Fourth quarter, Tua collides with Damar Hamlin, suffers the third diagnosed concussion of his NFL career.
Well, that context makes me feel bad for what I think we're about to do, but I would hope Tua is not spending today watching sports TV, because that is the discussion today, because he has reached a point where that is what everyone, I think, immediately, honestly thought the moment that hit happened. Yeah. And I want to say this on the front end. I firmly believe that if Tua wants to keep playing, he should be able to keep playing. I believe in the moment during a game, athletes sometimes need to be protected from themselves because they might not have their full senses about them. But after the fact, you know what I mean? Once if he gets told all the risks, everything, it should be his decision. I also believe that if he were someone in my life, I would say, man, it's a cruel reality that the thing you have worked for your whole life, your body doesn't seem to be built for. Because, Brew, that was not a brutal hit.
No, it wasn't.
And
that can happen several times.
That can happen at any point. And the only thing that I could think of today was just a quick, short personal story. I had a friend in high school growing up who, from the time we were little, I'm going to be an Air Force pilot. I want to be an Air Force pilot. I've maybe told the story before, I don't know. And did everything right. Like, getting into the Air Force is hard, you know what I mean? And it was dead set on it. Did everything right, and he never stopped growing. He ended up being the tallest kid in our school by a mile. And he graduated high school at over 6'6".
Oh, wow. And
couldn't be. Just too tall. Like, for at least back, 20 years ago, whatever, if you're over 6'5", you can't be a fighter pilot. Maybe still go to the Air Force, you know what I mean? And it was just kind of a cruel, like, man, life is just unfair sometimes. And I think Tua, his body is not built for professional football, and I think we have a lot of evidence of that. Again, Brew, I'm not saying the league should ban him, but if I were one of his counselors, I would say there's no reason to think this isn't going to happen again and continue to happen, and that's where I land on this.
I want to send prayers out to him first and his family, and he's a man of faith, so I know he'll appreciate prayers. But I agree with a lot of what you said. That is the first thing that went through your mind, and the hit wasn't an incredible hit. It was just contact that, again, could happen on many plays. I do get where Mike McDaniel's coming from, like, as a coach.
Yes.
For the head coach, he definitely should not be talking about his retirement and things like that. But people outside of the organization, and obviously some people in the organization are probably talking about it behind closed doors, but people outside of the organization, this is definitely a conversation that they can, and there's no problem with us having it. Now, there were some tweets, one from, I know, a former player, saying the NFL should step in. I agree with Nick. No, they shouldn't. If he clears protocol at some point, and I have little doubt that he will, it might be weeks, it might be months, whatever, but I have little doubt that he'll eventually clear protocol. He should be able to play if he wants to. It's a dangerous sport. And this, at any time in football, you are open to a serious life-altering injury. Boxing, same thing. Race car driving. Like, there are sports that are dangerous, and that's what you do. If you choose to do that, know that you're in danger. And so this is one of those sports. But I got to say this too. And when he was up for, like, in the offseason in the contract, I was saying if I'm the Dolphins, I would not pay him because one, I want to see him have another healthy season. And two, I was like, I'm not quite sure how great he can be yet. I'm glad he got his money.
I'm thrilled.
I am glad he got his money. And when I think about like Dak, and obviously Dak hasn't had these types of issues, but whether it was Dak having to play this year, you know, and then go to the offseason as a free agent or whoever, this is the battle that a quarterback, and any player, but particularly a quarterback, has to think of when it's like, should I just get security because at any time this could happen? Or do I wait and maybe get more money in the future? So I am so glad he got his money. I will not tell him what to do. I hope those around him, the doctors, the team, everyone is just honest with him. Like you said, just let him know. Chances are this type of hit will happen again, or you may hit your head again on the ground. And just be honest with him and let him make his decision. My preference, now part of me wants to see him progress as a player and how good he could be, but just as a human being, my personal preference, which means nothing to him, of course, but would be that he step away, get his money, and be involved, if he chooses, be involved with the sport he loves, maybe as a coach, front office, you know, broadcasting, whatever he might want to do. Those doors will be open to him. And, like, it's unfortunate, but he did get a shot, and maybe he'll keep playing, but he's gotten a shot, and fortunately he's gotten paid. And so that's how I see it.
I think it's challenging for anybody to have to do a real pivot on their life, especially if you're 27 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, oh, I'm retiring at 27? So that is awkward to even try to wrap your head around, where every other profession in the world, you're kind of going this way. The challenge, I think, is this. He considered retiring in 2022.
Right.
He's on the record of saying, I thought about it, but it felt like he didn't retire, obviously, and then had a plan in place. And we saw the plan. Gain weight, so he looked physically bigger. And then he said he learned how to fall. He learned some grappling techniques, and we saw that all last year. He would get pushed, and it was like, wow, that does look like a unique way to fall, like jiu-jitsu falling. And the challenge, I think, is that plan worked for 19 games. He got away from that plan. Now, you know, maybe that it's too far in the rearview mirror where he's initiating contact. That's very different what we saw last night from early last year.
Remember?
And he lost the weight. So the plan kind of changed. But I don't know if, like, all right, so now we need another plan. No, we need chapter 2 of the plan. I don't know if there is a chapter 2.
So I think this is. Listen, I just owe the audience honesty. I don't think people will be mad at me for saying this, because it's not judgmental. It's just what I was thinking. I think one of the reasons he took off and ran was because he was playing so poorly and the game was going so poorly. I felt like he was pressing. I feel like, and I think that would not have, as soon as he took off and ran, I was like, before he got hit, it was odd because he doesn't do that.
Right.
And it just felt to me like that game had gone so sideways. It was such a big game. And the reason I bring that up, Wilds, is I think that plan for last year put a ceiling on him as a player.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to self-sack when need be. I'm going to have the fastest release in the league by a mile because I can't get hit. Yeah. You have a ceiling as a player under those circumstances. No player wants to put a ceiling on themselves. So then last year, after his best year, they make the playoffs, the best year from team and individual success, all of these things, right? He then says, well, I need to get a little trimmer because I need to be more escapable. And then we see him with the first game where he faces adversity in the season. He does what a lot of our best quarterbacks do. It's not open. I'm going to go make it. I'm going to go make something happen. And he didn't get blindsided. He didn't. So this is where it was like you said, Brew, it was a normal hit. And so this is, I know some people, because some people just don't like pro football and want to blame, like, oh, there's no safe way to play it. I don't look, listen, professional football is obviously a collision sport and a dangerous sport. But, and you brought up race car driving. Race car driving is as well. It's dangerous for everyone. But I looked it up. There's something called syncope, which is where people just, randomly pass out a few times a year. You know what I mean? Like blackout. And there's different reasons people have it, whatever it is. If you happen to be afflicted by that, race car driving for you is particularly it's dangerous for everyone, but for you, it is uniquely dangerous. Tua seems to be afflicted by, it's not only that he is super susceptible to concussions, but his concussions look differently than almost anybody else's that we're used to seeing. You know what he does? And so they are noticeable and awful. And it's, again, I apologize to Chris Nowinski or anyone out there that's a true expert in this, but I have to imagine more traumatic for his brain than the guys who stagger a bit and it's like, oh, okay. And
his body
seizes. He does the fencing position. So I just feel like it is uniquely dangerous for him. And it's cruel that the thing you worked for and became so great at, your body is not built for, but that's what I feel watching him play football.
And the thing is this, Wilds, and you talked about all that he had learned last year with how to fall and stuff. It's every pro sport is unpredictable. I mean, maybe last year it worked. Over the course of 10 more seasons, are we to believe he never would have got put in a position where he can't fall the way he has to? Or you know what I mean? Like, you can't control how things are going to happen in this game. And Nick, even if you're right that he was just ran because the game was going poorly and he was pressing, he's going to be in that position again
that's my point.
Many times a season. So it's just, that's just football. And maybe he just, unfortunately, isn't built for it.
All right, we'll talk about the other side of the ball. The Bills moved to 2-0 with the 31-10 win. Josh Allen did everything in Game 1. James Cook did everything in Game 2, 78 yards and 3 touchdowns. Brooded Buffalo put the league on notice last night with their dominating performance.
I wouldn't say put the league on notice. It was a great win. It was exactly what I expected. I thought they just were too tough for the Dolphins. They just kind of manhandled them. Obviously, you had the interceptions that turned the game early. But, Nick, you often bring this up, and I apologize if you had it in your notes, but you always talk about the Bills as the September champions.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's 14-4 in September since 2019. So them looking very good in September is not unusual. It's what they always look like. And it seems like every September we are saying, oh, they're right there. The Chiefs better watch out. And then, the rest of the season occurs. What I am ready to say is this, because, before, when they traded Stephon Diggs, I said, oh, they can win the division and still make the playoffs, but they're no longer a contender. I'm going to hold off on saying they are definitely a contender now. Let's get a few more weeks into the season. What I am willing to say is they can be, and I would say are, just as good right now or without Stephon Diggs as they were with him. Like, they're going to be fine. Now, they play differently, but I really think they can be just as good without him as they were with him. They're doing it differently, the run game. And, Nick, you see it with Josh. Obviously, he's not throwing the ball a lot, but their thinking is it's cutting down on mistakes.
Yep.
And his accuracy is great. He's at 74% right now. He did make some really nice passes last night.
Yeah, the one that we showed, the one where he didn't get a touchdown
right before,
out of it.
At the one, right.
That was a great play.
Right. And the run. So, I think they're playing differently, but I think they're a very good team.
Sorry, I was just going to build off that point. I have a graphic that Josh made about how much the Bills run the ball now. And I think when we close our eyes and think about the Bills offense, I see Josh Allen sitting back and throwing it, and that's not who they are anymore. They're basically the new Ravens. They've got the #1 rushing percentage. That used to be the Ravens thing, #1 rushes per game, yards, and rush division's third. So that's since Joe Brady took over, and because of that, like you said, now, besides the fumbles, they are +3 in turnovers because Josh is not putting the ball into bad spots anymore.
And that, last night's not an indicator of that, but a fair amount of that is Josh running the ball.
Yeah.
So it is, you know what I mean, whether it's design runs.
Last night was just two.
Right, last night's not, but you guys have heard, I've said this for a couple years on the show, that the scariest play to be up against as a Chiefs fan is the Josh Allen scramble. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's third down, nothing's there, and then all of a sudden he's running. So some of them are design runs, some of them are scrambles. But I have a theory about, because listen, I've had the Bills as the third best team in the AFC going into the year. That's still where I think they are. I have the Bengals second. I'm not going to overreact to week one. We'll see. You know what I mean? But the Bills, to me, the Bills, here's the story of the Bills, Wilds, and it's about overrating and underrating.
Oh.
Okay? Because I think they're probably just a couple weeks from being overrated again after being underrated in the offseason. I think we're going to be dropping September champs banners. However, they do have Trevor on Monday night, in 9 days. So watch out for that. But set that aside.
Extra rest?
So here's what I think happened, Wilds.
Yeah.
I think the media overrated their aging talent that left the team while they were there. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Stephon Diggs. These are great players. And I was here being like, they're fine. I think they're fine. And that overrating of those players once they left made them underrate what the team was going to be this year because they thought they had lost a bunch of great players, and I thought they had lost a bunch of players. And to me, the reality is a healthy Josh Allen is going to get you a top 10 offense. And Sean McDermott is going to get you, no matter who the personnel is, in the regular season, an above-average defense at the least. And with great personnel, you can have a great defense, but no matter what. So top 10 offense, above-average defense, you're going to win 10 games, like a baseline 10 games. To me, the thing that got put on notice last night that I watched, I was like, ooh, well, that's something, was Von Miller. Von Miller has been a disastrous signing for them. They gave him 6 years, $120 million. It was ambitious when they did it. He then sadly got hurt right after they gave it to him. And last year was a shell of himself, and people thought, well, can they cut him? Can they even do it cap-wise? Week one, he had a sack for the first time in almost a year. Last night, he was getting after it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, if Von Miller is not vintage Von Miller, but just a good, you know what I mean, a plus pass rusher, that does change the math on what their defense can be. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the Bills are a good team, and at times a very good team. I thought that going into the year. So last night, Brew and I thought they would win. I didn't think it'd be 31-10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think people overrated the names they lost as opposed to the level of play those guys were all providing across the board.
One final thing, too, because not only Josh and I are halfway through our all 22, but a lot of times I just jump into the vibes, and I have Josh kind of draw some stuff. Josh Allen talking about the selflessness of the team and then giving credit to his defense. Stephon Diggs alert. I don't think it was a shot at him.
It was
but
just
the
an
vibes
honest,
feel different.
The vibes, absolutely. Last year they were terrible. This year they're great. All right, and nothing against Diggs, but I don't care how great of a receiver a guy is. If your receiver is constantly going through all these histrionics on the sidelines and showing up the quarterback, that's going to be bothersome. I don't care if it's Randy Moss, if it's Terrell Owens, whoever it is, as great as they all are, it's going to get on your nerves. And that had to rub Josh the wrong way. And I also think he was looking for Stephon. Yeah. And now he's just like, it's the open man. I think C.J. Stroud is doing that from the get-go. Like, whoever's open, I'm hitting. I think Josh has had to look for Stephon. And Stephon was great, and it worked for them for a long time. But that can limit you after a while, and now he's just whoever's open. I don't feel the pressure to have to go to this guy.
Vibes meter was high.
I couldn't hear what Josh said over Fitzpatrick's shirt, so I can't respond to it.